What I'm about to tell you is the true story that transformed me from an average student at one of the best high schools in America to, dare I say, one of the top students by the time that I graduated. It's a tale about somebody who applied a very powerful but dangerous mindset to improve a lot in a short amount of time. That being said, this mindset is a double-edged sword, so please proceed with caution and watch until the end. Now, the first thing you should know about my alma mater, Phillips Exeter Academy, is that it runs on an 11.0 GPA scale. Wild, I know, I thought so too. This means that an A is an 11, there's no A pluses, an A minus is equal to a 10, a B plus is a 9, a B is an 8, and so on and so forth. Back when I attended Exeter, the average grade was hovering around mid-9, 9.6, 9.8-ish. To be in the top 10% of the school academically, you needed to have above a 10.4. This is because it was downright impossible for someone to get an 11.0 every trimester. And that's right, I said trimester. Exeter, like most boarding schools in the Northeast, has a fall, winter, and spring term, which I think makes it harder to get great grades, since just one major assignment could really tank your grades. Anyways, the point that I'm trying to get at is that getting an 11.0 at Exeter was, and perhaps still is, nothing short of a divine miracle. Like, out of 1,000 students, guys, less than 10 get a perfect 11.0 every trimester. At least that's how it was when I was there back in 2013, 2015. And the number of kids that got an 11.0 every trimester over the course of 4 years of high school at Exeter, from what I know, it's just never been done before. You know, legend has it that the student who got closest to that perfect, coveted 11.0 graduated with a 10.93 average or something. I tell you all this because when I first got to Exeter, I was super duper average. I felt pretty disheartened to be getting 9.6s and 9.8s, not gonna lie, especially when I knew the max score was in 11. I mean, I'd just gone from getting straight A's in my public middle school back in Miami to now getting B's, and sometimes even C's. So how did I improve? Well, I latched onto the best students I knew, like a frickin' barnacle. This is the very first core principle that I wanted to share with you guys. If you want to be a top student, you really have to study top students. And not just that, you need proximity. You need to be studying with them, like ideally in the same physical space, asking them questions, watching how they do the same assignments as you, really figuring out how does their mind work. Sometimes you'll find that these guys just have a raw genius that just makes you jealous. But other times you'll find that they're not necessarily working harder than you, but just smarter. There was this one girl in my grade who eventually went to Harvard and was just killing it in English. When I asked her what her secret was, she told me it was to talk to the teacher one-on-one before every single major assignment. When I started taking her advice, not only did the quality of my work improve, but it helped me get some stellar recommendations, which was one of the deciding factors that got my butt into the Ivy League. And how do I know? Well, because I literally took a look at my Yale admissions file and they cited my recommendations as one of the most important factors. Now that's just a simple tactic, not really a strategy, I guess you could say. When it comes to mindset, that dark, dangerous superpower I wanted to talk about with you guys, it was about going beyond perfection. There was this one Chinese American guy in my dorm who consistently got 10.8s and 11s. Not only that, this guy was a certified baller. Like, this guy was nationally ranked for golf and recruited to Yale to play golf, which was a huge deal. Like, to put things into perspective, Yale only recruits one golfer each year. And sometimes they don't even recruit any, zero. So Yale hands him a golden ticket and says, you will get in. All you have to do is apply. And what did my guy do? He said, no thanks, I'm good. I think I'm gonna take my chances with Harvard. Harvard did not end up recruiting him, but he still got in based solely on academic merit. And needless to say, being surrounded by people like that just left an indelible impression on me. One day around midnight, I asked this Chinese American golfer genius friend of mine, how do you do it, man? How do you consistently get 10.8s and 11s? And I will never for the life of me forget what he said. He was like, oh, it's so simple, Kev. I just pretend that there's a 12.0 and I shoot for that. Like, what? My 15-year-old mind nearly exploded when I heard that. That was like hearing an Olympian tell me, actually, I'm not training for the Olympics. I'm training to compete on Mount Olympus with actual gods. During my sophomore year of high school, I kind of chilled out, played League of Legends, my grades weren't that great, tried to talk to girls, that sort of thing. But when junior year rolled around, I put in some serious blood, sweat, and tears, and I shot for that 12.0. I didn't want to get A's. I wanted to get S's or S pluses, It's a new category of a grade I invented. I wanted to be the best my teachers had ever seen, or at least that's what I told myself. I studied papers written by not just the best students in my class, but some of the best students in the history of Phillips Exeter Academy. Like, their award-winning essays and stories were published, so I would go to the library and read those online. I took notes. I applied those notes. I kept asking my teachers for advice. And eventually, over the course of about a year or two, I too started winning prizes and I was recognized for my writing. But when it came to biology and the sciences, where I knew I was going to be tested on my ability to not just memorize, but also synthesize facts, I really struggled. The only way I could retain this information was by literally handwriting with pen and paper what the textbook said. So I would handwrite 10 to 15 pages each night before major tests. I'd stay up until 2 or 3 a.m. Then I'd wake up again at 5 or 6 to keep going and cram some more before an exam. I had caffeine surging through my veins, regularly drinking 3 to 5 cups of coffee a day, sleeping less than 6 hours a night. On top of that, I was doing my best to run 4 other clubs, trying to practice piano every day, stay consistent. But sometimes I was just so exhausted that I'd fall asleep on the keyboard and there'd be a little drool, and then one of my classmates would come and shake my shoulder and wake me up. But my grades were really good. Personally, I still think it was worth it. I was proud, but I was also suffering. The other thing that kept me going was my family. My parents sacrificed so much for me to be educated. These guys took out tens of thousands of dollars in credit card debt to fund my extracurricular activities, tennis, swimming, piano, Boy Scouts, all throughout the 2008 recession when our family didn't make a dime from our Chinese restaurant. And my dad, he worked in that kitchen for 20 years. So my mom could have the time and energy to drive me around, give me a shot at the best possible education the US had to offer. At the end of the day, I knew these grades and what I was studying for wasn't just about me. It was about all of us. When I was trying to memorize how nephrons function in kidneys at 1 a.m., I knew my dad was cleaning up the kitchen, mopping up floors, and just getting ready to head home. If he was putting in the work, so could I, That was my mentality back then. And while that did give me some added pressure, I honestly felt like I'd been given a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to make not just my sacrifices worth it, but theirs too. For those of you who sometimes feel burdened or even suffocated by familial expectation, I will say this: as time goes by, you just might discover that this pressure was a blessing and a privilege all along. I mean, when someone expects something out of you, that's special, Not everyone has that. This notion of going beyond perfection is, without a shadow of a doubt, what helped me get into Princeton, Yale, and many other top colleges. Not only that, but it proved to me that there were previously defined limits that I could break through and surge past if I really put my mind and soul to it. But my advice after years of reflection and also mentoring kids through this process time and time again is to apply this thinking with caution. It can come handy for sure in some certain scenarios and for certain time periods, but to live your entire life where beyond perfection is the goal, I think that's a recipe for disaster. Maybe it works for some folks, but eventually you will run out of steam and burn out at some point. And that burnout rarely looks pretty, my friends. Besides, once you get out of the system, you realize that there really is no such thing as perfection. Is perfection a 4.0 or an 11.0? No, of course not. That being said, these numbers do give us something to aim for. They help keep us accountable. They tell us if we're living up to our potential. They give us an idea of how well we're doing compared to our peers. And in that respect, they can be kind of helpful. Ultimately though, before you adopt this mindset, ask yourself if it's truly necessary given the circumstances and if it's right for you. It's like donning a costume or even becoming a different person for a period of time. And while this might help serve you as you seek to achieve certain goals, at the end of the day, this mindset, this notion of going beyond perfection can be helpful, but don't let it dominate or suffocate you. It's a tool, nothing more, nothing less. I do hope that you found this video and content helpful. Please let me know what other topics you'd like me to discuss in the comment section below. Know that I am rooting for you constantly. I think about you guys all the time. And thank you from the bottom of my heart for watching this video. Take care.